Hi, welcome back guys. This is your sensei, back with another fanfiction. This is the 7th part of What If Naruto Got Harem. Now before starting, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. Naruto lay slumped against the tree as the sand trio took off for their village, much like the rest of the ninja that tried to break Konoha's barriers. A minute later, a red, green, and white figure dropped out of the trees, his back to Naruto. He let them go. Jiraiya gazed ahead, his trained ears picking up their sounds as they fled. He turned towards the lumped orange, red, and black genin, looking down at the damage he took. To be able to control the Kyuubi's chakra that well at this stage, he murmured again. He swiftly plucked the boy up and tucked him under his arm. I just hope it's still him in control. Without another word, Jiraiya leapt through the thick brush into the sky, bouncing along the top branches toward the hospital. The last of the sound hightailed it from the walls, the leaf still standing proudly, watching them flee. Many remained at the walls to guard the village from a possible return strike, while others either barked orders or ran around helping the injured. Nearly all of the civilians watched from peepholes in the Hokage mountain caves. It was dusk before the all-clear came in the form of a single ninja to each of the entrance boxes. As the civilians filed out, 3 just looked down into the village, watching the smoke begin to dissipate and the ninja move like a flea circus. These 3 were Fudo Koibito, Tuchai, and his daughter Iam. Do you think our stuff survived? Koibito asked, looking at an expressionless Tuchai. The ramen seller gave out a long sigh after trying hopelessly to spot even a flash of orange that wasn't fire. All I care about is whether my best customer survived. Iam rested a hand on her father's shoulder. I'm sure he did, Dad. Naruto never gives up after all. The older men turned to face her. Besides, he still has that ramen coupon to spend, remember. He wouldn't leave us before using that. She smiled weakly. Tuchai let out a large laugh while Koibito chuckled. Yeah, little squirt would never give that up, would he? The old ramen maker smiled, patting his daughter's head. Your Naruto's a lot like my Anko. I've never met anyone who could put away 100 of my dango. Special recipe too. Koibito chuckled. The 3 turned from the sightseeing, walking back down the narrow path, back to their businesses. Get a stretcher over here, Kotsu yelled out after pushing aside a large chunk of what used to be ceiling. The white transport arrived, carried by Izumo as he laid it down next to the injured Hyuga member. The pair quickly lifted the unconscious man onto the stretcher. HEL. Kotsu turned back to the ruins of what was a building. Oi, there's still someone in there, he called out, hoping to grab some extra attention. Izumo quickly looked down at the Hyuga. Kotsu, we need to get this guy some help, he's bleeding out fast. Damn it, Kotsu cursed. This day was full of pain and misery that wouldn't stop even after the enemy had fled. A figure was running along the roofs on the opposite side of the street. Oi, kid, Izumo yelled. The figure stopped, looked down at the situation before swiftly dropping to the ground. How can I help? He asked, his nerves kicking in as the adrenaline fled from his system. What's your name? Get this guy to the hospital quick and send someone out this way. We need more support if others are trapped. Kotsu ordered. Why, yes sir. He nodded, picking up the back end of the stretcher as Izumo took the front. The stretcher rose slowly before the duo set off at a swift pace up the street. The Chunin looked down at the Hyuga member he was carrying, his branch member mark visible with his headband missing. It was the same one that had worked with him on the entrance gate. Suchai Brock never forgot the tongue lashing the Hyuga received from Lord Jiraiya that one day. He remembered how good it felt to see the proud Hyuga taken down a peg. He looked down into his face. Now, he felt nothing but sadness for this man, just another victim of this needless violence. The cleanup carried on through the night. The sound of stone being heaved around and ninjas near silent footsteps as they carried out whatever they could to help everyone could be heard around the village. Just when a few people had thought the worst was over, a massive crash echoed around the village. Those that had managed to find sweet slumber were woken abruptly as a chunk of the village disappeared into the night. No rest for the ninja as light tags lit up the area. A good portion of the northwestern village had sunk into the very earth itself. A great panic spread out among the civilians who could see the area affected. This was quickly calmed by ANBU. Around the area that had collapsed, a giant red rope had been erected through the streets that now looked like a barrier keeping people from stepping into a giant sinkhole. Thanks to a tip from a certain Yamanaka, all people in that district had been relocated temporarily until the situation could be confirmed. With the earth unable to hold itself up, that section of city had collapsed, flooding the cave that the one-tailed Shukaku had created 9 hours before. The full extent of the damage couldn't be seen until next morning. With Earth Jutsu users busy clearing the stable parts of the village, no support had been made to hold up the buildings. Houses and businesses could be rebuilt, an injured child being crushed beneath rubble could not. Thankfully, there were no more surprises for the hidden leaf for the rest of the clear-up. Days passed without incident, with ninja across the village running on willpower and Sawlighter pills alone before anyone could relax. 1 week had passed before a certain knucklehead stirred and began to wake. Urgh, what? I have, he muttered. The sound of a door opening and closing could be heard. An eye opened slowly as the artificial light tried to pierce his vision. The door opened again, followed by footsteps as a shadow now fell over his vision. Honorable grandson, can you hear me? A tall figure softly said. Harem, Konohamaru said slowly, trying to open his eyes wider. Honorable grandson, you have returned to us. A different voice perked up, more annoying and recognizable than the last. Abisu, sensei. Blurry shapes began focusing themselves into human and furniture form, particularly one annoying sensei, a stunned doctor and a chair half embedded in the wall. What's going on? Konohamaru murmured, his limbs feeling like one of Naruto's training sessions times 100. You're in the hospital, Konohamaru. The hidden leaf was attacked and you suffered a few injuries. The doctor spoke up, annoyed the overly worried sensei had used up his tolerance of annoying visitors for the day. Lifting his head from the pillow slowly, Konohamaru looked down at his body. His arms rested in 2 slings, one for each section of the arm either side. What the hell? Konohamaru's voice rose dramatically. What happened to my arms? Abisu took a step back from the bed at this point and the doctor saw fit to tell him bluntly. Forgetting a few minor scrapes and cuts, your sensei here saw fit to recommend we keep your wounds away from everything else possible until they, and yourself, were fully healed. Konohamaru's blood slowed as he made out what the doctor was saying. He simply lifted his right arm and felt no pain whatsoever. Doing the same with the other one, he examined his hands and arms carefully before turning toward Abisu. What the hell were you trying to do? Scare me to death as soon as I woke up. Hurling the table-side lamp at the special Jonin as more proof he was absolutely fine. Abisu backed against the wall, almost sitting in the chair still stuck in there. Well you see, it was all to keep your dream of Hokage alive. Should your arms be damaged, it would be near impossible for you to become Hokage. Before Konohamaru could let out further frustrations on his irritating teacher, the door to the room burst open. Konohamaru, twin voices cried out. The 3 occupants turned to face the newcomers. Udon and Mogi were standing in the door frame, both looking up at their friend and leader. Mogi made the first move, dashing to his bedside and getting a bit too close to his face. Thank God you're awake, she shouted at his side. Mogi, not so fast. He jumped at her speed. Yeah, Mogi, the last thing you need to do right now is scare him to death. Udon interjected, walking over to complete the trio. Speaking of which, Konohamaru turned back to his sensei who was trying to sneak out through the window, though much too slowly. Where do you think you're going? Off to report your good health to the people by. All that was left was a smoky outline of the special Jonin as he fled from the awkward situation. What was that about? Mogi asked. I'll tell you later. Konohamaru brushed aside as he moved to slip out of bed. If you would not mind, Konohamaru, the doctor began, reminding the trio of his presence. I would just like to do some routine checks before you leave. Nothing major, it's just to check if everything works all right after everything. Oh, sure doc, Konohamaru replied, slipping back onto the middle, warmest part of the bed. As the doctor brought his stethoscope to his ears to begin, Konohamaru asked a question that had been bugging him for a while now. Okay, what's with the chair? Mogi and Udon looked over at the chair before turning away in embarrassment, partly due to the chair, partly due to Konohamaru's now exposed abdomen. Guys, the cold stethoscope was applied to his chest. Well, Abisu-sensei was ordering all these tests to make sure you were okay and everything. Mogi began. Everyone was running about, trying to help everyone that was hurt, and he demanded the best doctors focus on you. That doesn't explain the chair. Well, that was Udon's doing. Mogi looked at her teammate in mischief, both proud and smug and with a touch of adoration in her eyes. What happened? One of the nurses dropped your IV bag and quickly bent over to pick it up. She continued. Abisu-sensei then stopped barking orders and tried to, take a situation into his own hands. He didn't. He tried. Udon saw this and it kinda set him off. Udon looked away at this point, trying to ignore the next words. He picked up the chair he was sitting on and hurled it at Abisu-sensei. Konohamaru looked over at Udon, then to the chair before back to Udon. It was more than just embedded into the wall, it was damn near all the way through. Mogi continued while his brain processed this info. Unfortunately, he got his hand away at the last second. Then Udon shouted at him, telling him how he should do his duty and stop wasting time with perverted urges and overcomplicating a boo-boo. The doctors had already told him you only had some minor bruises and cuts, but he demanded that at least 3 doctors remain at your side until you were awake. Udon told him that as Hokage, you wouldn't care for your own health if more people could be saved with your last ounce of strength and that he should act the same. Konohamaru just looked up at his male companion in awe. It was without doubt the single bravest and most loyal act he'd ever seen or heard of, and it was only in duty to him and his dream. He, kinda left quickly after that. Udon finished the story. Yeah, Udon was so brave standing up to Abisu-sensei like that. Wow, thanks buddy, was all Konohamaru could get out. The awkwardness settled in for a minute before the doctor finished his scan and deemed the boy fit to leave. The trio quickly left when the boy was ready, walking slowly toward the hospital exit. So, what really happened then? I know it wasn't just a drill, he asked, talking about the event which put him in the hospital in the first place. We were ambushed. The whole village was attacked during the Chunin exams by the hidden sand and hidden sound. What? Konohamaru stopped suddenly. Is everyone else alright? Once again, both Udon and Myogi avoided the boy's gaze, solemn looks on their faces. Come on guys, what's happened? Konohamaru almost shouted. Myogi was the first to look at him again. It's about your grandfather, Konohamaru. A short distance away, a few floors up but lower than our first patient, lies another knucklehead. It was at this time that Naruto's breathing increased, his blood pressure rose, and his heart rate sped up. Several visitors present in the boy's room looked up, checking between the machines and the blonde eagerly. "Naruto," he heard a faint voice call out. In the boy's mindscape, he could hear the sounds, almost physically seeing them as they passed through him in the corridor. "Come on, nearly there." He pushed himself, tracing the sounds back. At last, he found it. At the end of this last dank corridor shone a bright white light. Waking up, he saw the words pass him again, definitely coming from the light. Determination on his face, he sprinted toward the light, wishing this nightmare to be over. "Naruto," the blonde's eyes shot open. The people in the room jumped as he sat up in an instant, his breathing fast and labored. What he began, only to have the wind knocked out of him when something slammed into his chest. "Not awake for 5 seconds and you take him out again." A deep, gruff voice called out, one that Naruto recognized. Buza, in the Flesh Kid. Naruto could hear the man, but couldn't see him through the two mounds on top of him. One in black, and one in brown with two smaller buns above. He reached his hands up, trying to get whatever was holding him down away from him, or at least find out what they were. He put his hands on the top of the mounds, ready to pull them away when they pulled back themselves. "Tenten, Haku, you let us worried sick," both girls chorused. Naruto's eyes adjusted to their features before zooming past them, looking for Zabuza. "Shikamaru, Choji, what are you guys doing here?" He moaned, his arms behind his back, supporting his weight as he sat up. "It's because one of these days you're gonna push yourself too hard and end up in this bed permanently," Shikamaru called over as he moved his rook on the small shogi board he and Choji had between them. "Heh, with the way you go, Naruto, we're surprised you're up as early as you are now," Choji continued, one hand moving his queen, the other round an energy bar. How long have I been out?" "About 2 days now, Naruto," Tenten said, tilting her head slightly, wondering if she had her dates correct. Naruto quickly took this time to look around the room. Zabuza was indeed there, just hidden behind the plant and leaning against the wall. Tenten and Haku were on either side of his bed, and Shikamaru and Choji were playing shogi in the corner. The door to the room squeaked open as everyone turned to face the new arrivals. "Any change?" Iruka called out whilst holding 2 cups of coffee. "Yeah, the brat's awake," Zabuza said as the door stopped less than an inch away before his face as it hit the buffer. He liked this spot. "What?" Iruka quickly closed the door and looked right at the blonde he'd bonded with over the years. "Naruto, what did I tell you about fighting alone?" He shouted immediately, his head appearing to get bigger with every syllable. Zabuza's hand shot out and pilfered his coffee before Iruka got any louder. "Great, the first thing I hear when I wake up is a lecture. Thanks for the voice of sympathy, Iruka-sensei," Naruto shouted back, his eyes narrowing as Iruka's head reached its usual size before surpassing it. "Sympathy? I'll show you sympathy," Iruka started, trying to roll up one of his sleeves with the coffee hand. "Come on then, sensei. I took Gaara out, I'm sure I can beat you now." Naruto brought his own hands up, trying to form fists and keep himself balanced, which was kinda awkward in his position. "You little brat, you're a million years too early to defeat me." Iruka shot back, his sleeves finally rolled and his face right in Naruto's. "I think what Iruka is trying to say is that he's glad you are awake, Naruto," a quiet voice called out. Everyone's eyes turned from the display to focus on the half-masked figure in the corner. "Shino, you're in one piece," Naruto yelled out, his voice changing from mock anger to happy in a heartbeat. "I am. Thank you from your concern, Naruto," Shino replied simply in his usual monotone voice. "See, Iruka-sensei, it isn't hard to display your true emotions." That was emotional Shino. Everybody thought, giant sweat drops appearing. Iruka's eye twitched in annoyance at the second one of his former students to annoy him that day. "When did you get here?" Tenten asked, wondering how he got in without anyone noticing any movement. Shino's body stance shifted. Somehow, you could tell he was now sweat dropping behind his overcoat. "I came in with Iruka-sensei." Tenten blushed lightly and turned away in embarrassment. They may not be great friends, but at least you should notice when someone enters a room. Naruto's laughing pierced the awkward silence that followed. Classic Shino. Now all the funny looks were on him. "Game over," Shikamaru stated as he trapped Choji's pieces in one of his strategies. "To answer your earlier question, Naruto, Choji and I are here to deliver a message from our fathers." "Hey, what do they want me for?" Naruto asked, cutting Shikamaru off as he opened his mouth. "If you just listened for a moment I could tell you." The lazy genius sighed, snapping the little board shut and tucking it away in his pouch. "Our fathers want to talk to you about something you did during the invasion, that's all they told us." Choji continued for his friend. "Oh, any idea?" "No, we don't know anything more." Shikamaru cut across to answer Naruto's unasked question, ending with a troublesome. "Right, sure thing then guys." Naruto's voice returned to its normal volume as his grin was pasted across his face. "Anyway, we can get out of here now, come on Choji." Shikamaru motioned to his friend to lead the way. "Get well soon, Naruto." "Yay, get better soon," Choji shouted from the doorway. The duo opened the door and left, before Naruto's thoughts could dwell on whether or not they were there only because they had to be. His keen ears picked up a last drop of conversation. "Always interesting," Shikamaru said, his light chuckle floating back down the hall. His grin shifted closer to his real smile as he eyed his remaining guests. "So, Who's gonna tell me when I can get out of here? Zabuza chuckled lightly, crushing the now empty cup in his hand and tossing it into the bin across the room. We should head off too, Uruka. The boy will be doing a lot of waiting before he's getting out of here. What? Naruto yelled out. As Shikamaru and Choji left the building, they heard Naruto's voice echo past them and out into the village. The duo chuckled at their own knowledge of the subject. It's only to make sure you get back to full strength, Naruto. Uruka waved his arms, trying to calm the fuming genin. I am at full strength. Watch me beat you both with hands behind my back. He yelled out. Doctor's orders, not mine. Uruka reasoned, knowing the shouting match that would erupt. He took it as his cue to leave. Glad to see your energies back at any rate, Naruto. I'll check back later. The Chunin called back as he shut the door behind Zabuza and himself. A faint thump could be heard as Naruto hurled his pillow at the door to vent his anger. GRRR, stupid Uruka-sensei. He muttered. Ease up on him, Naruto. He cares about your well-being is all. Haku tried to reason with him. We all do. Much to their surprise, Naruto just let out a deep breath followed by another grin. Yay, but it's his way of winding me up. He always does it. Tenten and Haku breathed a sigh of relief. Knowing that boys don't always display clear emotions or messages helped them understand a little of what Naruto was like with his closest friend. So what did I miss? Outside the blonde's window sat a purple-headed figure. With her back and feet stuck to the wall with chakra, Anko smiled after confirming the little shrimp had woken up safe and sound. Her smile faded slightly as the three apologized, telling him they felt it best he rest before Uruka comes back to scold him before leaping off to her next duty. She didn't mind checking up on the brat, especially since he still owed her that ramen contest. The day was beginning to draw to a close and the sun began setting along the battered and beaten wall of Konoha. The last rays of sunlight fell upon a trio of figures talking atop the Hokage residence. All right, what do you two scholarly advisors want from me? Jiraiya's voice asked gruffly. The male of the two advisors spoke up first. You know perfectly well why we called you here. Listen, if we are going to discuss politics again, I'm just not up for that today. Jiraiya held his hands up in a whatever pose. From what I hear, the Sand Village surrendered to us completely. As soon as the village can support itself again. Literally, I'm out of here. That is not the case, Jiraiya. Koharu spoke up. Jiraiya's eyes narrowed, sending a glare at his sensei's former teammates. Oh, then please enlighten me to the situation. He mocked. Amira pressed on without missing a beat. While the Sand Village is completely out of action for the time being, they have pinned the blame squarely on Orochimaru, manipulating them from the shadows. No doubt they have the Kaisuke's corpse to prove it. Jiraiya cut in. Indeed, but this doesn't count one of the surrounding nations possibly making an attempt for our village. With our defenses battered, it's only a matter of time before someone sends a force knocking. Jiraiya's thoughts turned sour as Koharu continued. We need a strong leader to guide the village through these troubled times. An emergency council was called with the Lord of the Land of Fire. We chose you to be the next to take up the hat as Hokage. Jiraiya flinched at those words. His sensei's death was too fresh for everyone bar these heartless ex-shinobi. TSH, for some reason, that just doesn't sound appealing to me right now. Please try again never. He sniped. Something you would like to inform us of, Jiraiya? Amira asked, sensing the lone Sannin was hiding something. With my last 2 missions from Sarutobi still standing, there is no way I can stay here until I complete them. Oh, and this makes you unsuitable for the position. With these lifelong missions, yes, it does. Koharu and Amira locked eyes for a second, both their age-old minds trying to find a solution to the village's problem. There is one other who could take up the position. Jiraiya said calmly. You mean? Yes, Tsunade. But she hasn't returned to the village since. I am well aware of her situation, Amira. Jiraiya cut across. But with her mind and body, she can lead the village back to its prime. Surprisingly, not even a hint of red appeared on the Sannin's face at the mention of his teammate's body. What makes you so sure of this? Oh, I know Tsunade. She can never resist a good wager. The sun set once more on the troubled village before rising again in the east. Long shadows were cast against chunks of walls and buildings that had otherwise barely felt the warmth of an early morning sunrise. A surprising amount of rubble had been scattered in the night, with most roads now blocking carts and other wheeled vehicles getting through should they try. The now fully scattered buildings, that looked full of destruction and death a few days ago, only shone with hope. All possible survivors had been saved. With more people now coming out of the hospital than going in, focus could now begin on the village defenses and restoration. Since the restoration could be done at a later date, most of Konoha's Jonin and Chunin were standing guard, waiting for others to heal. Mon, it's good to be free, Naruto shouted, letting the whole village know he was released bright and early. Since he was a patient within the last 24 hours, the doctors told him not to assist with the reparations of the village. First back to mine for some ramen, then to the old man's for a mission. He shouted, a little quieter as he eagerly counted the steps back to his apartment. Wow, I've been out 3 days now. That means I'll have 4 times breakfast, lunch and dinner waiting for me. Naruto grinned, rubbing his hands together. Any minute now I'll be woe. His mind raced as his stomach held him back. With wide eyes, he stared into the crumbled abyss that was his block and at least 5 others surrounding it sitting in a giant sinkhole. His hands grabbed at his belly and felt the weird sensation of fuzz against his fingers as he pushed himself back. He whirled around, finding himself standing on a small ledge that jutted a good building's length over the sinkhole surrounded by a thick red rope. "Well, what the hell's going on here?" he yelled out, looking around for any explanation. "Why, where's my house? Gaara did it. What? What the hell do you mean Gaara did it?" Naruto yelled at the fox in his mind. A sleeping Kyuubi pulled his tails round him tighter and slammed his giant paws into his ears. "Geez, keep it down. Even when I'm trapped inside you I barely get a minute's peace. Explain where the hell my house is and what Gaara has to do with it." The Kyuubi yawned deeply, its jaw retracting back slightly, showing his sharp teeth off, not that Naruto could see. When you fought him underground, you fought him under what you can see now. He wasn't exactly the type to put up support beams before inviting you down for tea. So then, yep, no more ramen. The fox chuckled as it turned over to sleep once again, ... and no more horrible jumpsuits. Naruto just walked back up to the edge of the crater, holding onto the red rope as though in dazed trance. My ramen. My home. A small gust of wind swept dust over the scene before him, blowing his golden locks across his eyes as he stared at the destruction. In a flash his mind was made up. The rope flicked up as he ducked under and shot out into the open air. "I'm coming, my preciouses," he shouted in a strange raspy voice and a crazed look in his eye. "Get him," a voice called out from behind the young ramen hunter. He turned in midair only to be grabbed by a giant pink thing. It curled around him, pushing his legs and arms into his body as he became trapped. "No, I needs my preciouses." He scratched at his pink prison. "Arg, damn it Inoichi, this kid scratches." Just as fast as he had been captured, Naruto was freed onto the cold hard ground. "Oof, hey, what's your problem?" Naruto began, his voice returning to its usual tone. As he looked up, he saw the smirking faces of the famous Ino Shikacho trio. Well, 2 smirking faces and 1 slightly annoyed face. "Damn it kid, you didn't have to scratch you know." Shoza Akamichi whimpered as he nursed his shrinking giant hand. "Hey, go easy on the lad, he did lose his house down there." Inoichi chuckled. "And my ramen," Naruto muttered. While he seemed calm on the outside, his mind was recalling just who these people were, the blonde especially. He had seen him tap into the Kyuubi's power. What were they going to do next? Don't worry about that kid, we got plenty of that back at my place," Shoza boasted. "My wife cooks up a storm when we have guests." What are you talking about, Mr. Akamichi?" Naruto asked, genuinely wondering what these 3 clan heads found so funny, especially since they all probably knew about the Kyuubi by now. "Since your place was destroyed in the battle, you have nowhere to live," Shikaku began bluntly. "You could either live with the others in the temporary tents," Inoichi continued, "or you could live with me until we've built your new place." Shoza finished. "Hey, what new place?" Naruto asked immediately. "Just what is going on here? Well, you don't expect to live with me forever, do you?" Shoza laughed. Shikaku could see the confusion in the boy's face and decided to cut to the heart of the matter as usual. "We're relocating you with the money Inoichi won from your fight." Money? Fight? Naruto was now getting a headache from all this information, his lack of house and lack of ramen. "Inoichi put a good chunk of money on you to win your fight during the Chunin exams. With your odds, he was up a small fortune. So I talked it over with the brains and the body here," Inoichi gestured to his cohorts, "and we decided that since you earned the money, it should be yours to spend. Not on ramen though." Shoza ended, a small smirk still on his face. Naruto didn't know what to say. With everything that's happened already, he knew he could only do one thing. The blonde stood up straight and bowed deeply. "Thank you for your generosity, Mr. Yamanaka, but I must respectfully decline." Now it was one thing to stun Shoza with unpredictability, but even Shikaku was at a loss for words this time. "Well, what do you mean you decline?" Shoza gaped. "This is a gift from the head of the Yamanaka clan to you, after you saved his life no less. I am sorry, but that is your money to help your own clan in this time of need. I am more than grateful for Mr. Akamichi's generosity, and to accept yours is too much." "So what do you suggest I do then, Mr. Uzumaki?" Naruto looked up at the sudden formality, right into Inoichi's eyes. "What should I do with this excess money that I couldn't possibly spend on my clan considering we are all alive, healthy, and all our assets are rubble-free? With respect, sir, I think you should do all you can for those less fortunate than myself. I am still alive and healthy too, the only thing I lack is a place to live. Since Akamichi-san has allowed me residence at his clans, at least the night, you should seek out those that cannot survive without help. I am a shinobi of the Hidden Leaf Village, and if there's one thing I know what to do, it's survive," Naruto stated proudly to one of the legendary teams the village had produced. The 3 looked at him with harsh eyes. To refuse a clan's help when it was offered purely as a gesture of kindness was quite the faux pas. "What then?" Shikaku asked simply. "After we've helped everyone else that needs it, what about you?" Though he couldn't tell, all 3 awaited his answer. "By the time you've helped everyone, I'll be back doing missions. I won't need a place to worry about when I'm out on missions. Then when I get back, the old man will give me a nice big paycheck so that I can buy my own place," Naruto answered. The 3 shared a look with each other. Haruka hasn't spoken to him yet. There's still only a genin Uzumaki. D ranks come out of the village's pocket since it's mostly our villagers that request simple tasks only a genin can handle. Well then you better make way for Konoha's newest chunin. I'll be out on C and B ranked missions in no time. Until I get my own place, I'll use a hotel on the off days between missions. You know Uzumaki, it is quite disrespectful to turn down a clan's help, especially when we do it in circumstances such as these," Inoichi stated, his voice no longer containing the friendliness it had a few moments ago. "No disrespect, Mr. Yamanaka, but if that offer can be used for people who need it rather than me, then I would turn you down every time," Naruto stated firmly, his mind now focusing on an escape route should this conversation go from uncomfortable to worse. "I see, Uzumaki, then you leave me with no choice," Inoichi stated, his friends giving him an uncertain look themselves. "That is exactly what I shall do." The small amount of fear left Naruto as the tension disappeared. "Huh, you talk big for such a small fry," Choza roared, his hands on his belly as it jiggled under his armor. "I must say, Naruto, that was quite an impressive speech," Shikaku chimed in, his small smirk now nearly reaching his top scar. "With thoughts like that, you might just make Hokage yet." Flattered by the compliment, Naruto still tried to take in just what was going on. "Come on, kid." Choza walked up to Naruto, slapped a giant arm around his shoulders and urged him forward. "Let's get back to mine. With that small frame and that hospital food in your belly, my wife's gonna love you." Okay, thanks Mr. Akamichi," Naruto replied nervously, both because of the situation and because Choza's arm was over 4 times as thick as his own. "Choza, how many times do we have to tell you, your clan's abilities are aided by added lipase? Other people's aren't. It's just a meal, Shikaku, what are you worried about?" "We're worried about how Naruto will be able to handle it when it's his first time while we've grown accustomed to the amount your wife cooks." Inoichi's pride for the young man was replaced with pity at what was to come. "He can eat till he's full like the rest of us," Choza proclaimed proudly to the street. Shikaku and Inoichi shared a look. Akamichi are never full. To say the Akamichi ate like kings would be putting it mildly. With the sun now high in the sky, Naruto discovered how the Akamichis ate lunch, even with the main members from the Nara and Yamanaka clan joining. When Naruto arrived at the Akamichi clan house, he wasn't surprised to see Team 10 present along with what he guessed were top members from each of the 3 clans. Spread along the large dining table within the residence was the largest amount of food Naruto had seen in his life. "Yo Naruto," Shikamaru called over. Ino and Choji both turned to see the new arrivals. "Our dads talked to you, I guess." They did. It was weird." "How so?" Choji chipped in. "Mr. Inoichi told me he would help provide the money for a new place all of my own." "What? Does he think our clan's made of money?" Ino shouted with several people now looking at the odd teens. No, it would be from the money he won betting on my match," Naruto answered. "He said he made a small fortune." "Oh Naruto," Choji gulped. "Not smart man." Shikamaru backed away from the blondes with Choji millimeters behind him, both looking at Ino like she was an exploding tag about to go off. But I declined." Naruto said quickly, "It's his money, he should do what he wants with it." Naruto decided to leave out the part how he might have convinced him to spend it on the village. "I see," Ino stated simply, the anger in her eyes gone. Naruto, Choji and Shikamaru could only look at her in confusion. "If you would excuse me," she said softly before turning around. "What's she?" Choji began. Ino's eyes had found her target. With merely a flash of yellow to indicate her speed, Ino was gone. The split second it took for her to reach her target, she let out a line only a daddy's little girl can use in a very special tone of voice. "Daddy, you know how you love me so much." Shikamaru's hand high-fived his face almost as fast as Ino had moved. Girls," he muttered. "Wow, didn't see that coming, hey buddy?" Choji nudged his best friend. "Sometimes, even I can't judge how Ino will react." Shikamaru sighed. "So," Naruto turned his attention back to the guys, "what's this all about?" "You're gonna be staying at my place for now, Naruto," Choji explained. "Dad told us how your place had been wreaked fighting that Gaara kid, and when Mum remembered my stories of us, she was practically on her way to discharge you from the hospital." "Stories? Yay, our competitions at Ikaraku's and all the times he brought out a new flavor." "Oh, Naruto nodded. "Wait, this isn't all for me, is it?" Choji's mum is an Akamichi with a love of cooking," Shikamaru explained. "This is a feast of goodwill between the clan and its allies, all because we watched each other's back during the invasion, and the worst any of us got was either a bad poisoning or a broken limb. Since we can't do anything until we get reorganized and the Hyuga have swept the village thrice over with their Byakugan, we can rest until our next orders come in. Despite what you see here, this is just a small meal to the Akamichi. They donated a large chunk of their stock to the relief effort." "Oh, so are the poison people gonna be okay?" "I will be as soon as we can begin," Choji answered back, continuing once he saw Naruto's confused look. "When me and Shikamaru left you and Shino, we caught up to the Gaara's teammates near the northwest wall. That guy with the makeup used his freaky puppet thing again. Shikamaru held it in place and I used my expansion jutsu to crush it." Choji punched his fist into his hand. "Needless to say, it was poisoned," Shikamaru filled in. "Yay, it didn't really kick until after they left, but that was mainly because they were running out of chakra and I needed an antidote. We were just lucky Shino's dad came along when he did. Sucked the poison right out with his bugs." Choji shivered. "Not to be rude, those things are useful, but creepy. I shall take that as a compliment." A deep voice spoke behind the three. Three heads turned to face the head of the Aburame, Ida Shades. Once again, sir, I am deeply grateful for your assistance." Choji bowed. "Noted," the Aburame said simply before turning and heading back into the crowd. "When did he get here?" Choji asked, turning back to Naruto. Just before I did, said Shino, appearing right in front of the Akamichi where Naruto stood not moments ago. Duh, Shino, Choji jumped. Your family have a real habit of sneaking up on people, you know. It's not nice. We are ninja, it's what we do. Shino reasoned with own brand of logic. Naruto just laughed at the scene before him. With the weird day he was having, he actually expected Shino to appear. Oka-ai everyone. A high, sweet voice called over the small crowd. It's ready. Naruto turned and saw a moderately plump woman set down a large roast pig in the center of the table, complete with apple. The 4 major clan heads present took their seats next to their wives and kids, with Naruto taking a seat between Shikamaru and Choji. As people began to load a variety of foods onto their plates, little chats could be heard between them until one voice pierced the rest. You must be Naruto. The plump woman eyed Naruto, giving him a once-over. Yes ma'am. Naruto replied sheepishly mid-reach for the ramen ladle. Choji has told me all about you, of course, she smiled widely. The motherly Akamichi had red highlights on the edge of her eyelashes, red lipstick and short brown hair and small spikes that seemed more suited for a boy's hairstyle. All coupled with her full-bodied size made her appear a very warm person. Just take whatever you want, we've plenty should anyone want more. Several nods of understanding from other people listening at the last part as everyone began to tuck into their meals. Thanks Mrs. Akamichi. Naruto bowed his head in thanks and finally tucked into some sweet ramen. The gathering wound down after the feast from Naruto's point of view, but simply Sunday dinner to the rest of the clans. I'm actually impressed Naruto, I didn't think you beat your old record. Shikamaru chuckled as he, Naruto, Choji and Shino lay in a 4-point star on the grass looking up at the evening clouds. Don't worry Naruto, that's it for you for today. Choji laughed at his fellow brother in ramen and honorary Akamichi. I must say, it was amusing, even from a distance. Shino chipped in. When you can't beat him, eat him, Naruto said, laughing at his own joke before the others chuckled to themselves. You realize that doesn't make any sense at all, right? Came an irate feminine voice as she stood over the 4. Does it have to? Naruto turned over, resting on his elbows as he looked up at the other blonde. Ino just scoffed and turned to Shikamaru. Come on lazy bones, we're leaving now. Shikamaru let out one final sigh before lifting himself to his feet. Alright, I guess this is it for me. He resigned to his fate. It seems my time here is up as well, Shino said, almost appearing next to Shikamaru, showing no signs of having moved from horizontal to vertical, a single bug resting on his fingertip. It was great seeing you guys again, Naruto said to his friends as they nodded back at him. You take care Naruto, Shikamaru chuckled, rubbing his hair as he did. Stay well my friend. Shino reciprocated, transferring the bug to his thumb through his will and simultaneously giving Naruto a thumbs up. Later I guess, Ino said, having already turned and waving goodbye as she walked away. Naruto settled back onto the grass with Choji in silence as the other 3 left the compound. So what do you think your next mission from the old man will be? Naruto asked after a while, trying to strike up another conversation. Naruto, Choji started, unsure of how he could end the sentence. Hoi, Naruto, the clan head called across the lawn. Choji sighed and silently thanked his father for at least the brief delay before the discussion. The pair sat up and looked over. You got a visitor, Choza yelled before gesturing his head in Naruto's direction. Who wants me at this hour? Naruto wondered. Through the clan gate stepped one Yamino Iruka, fresh off duty from the day guard. What's all Iruka doing here? Choji asked Naruto. Dunno, the blonde simply answered. As Iruka drew closer, Naruto could sense a funny feeling radiating from the Chunin. Something was wrong. Hi Naruto, Choji. Iruka smiled, hiding behind a mask Naruto knew all too well. What's up Iruka-sensei? Naruto asked. Iruka turned to Choji for a second. Would you mind if I spoke to Naruto alone a minute Choji? Choji just nodded at his old teacher before heading off to the main house, dreading the news Iruka was about to give. What's up Iruka-sensei? Naruto asked again, his mind whirring, trying to guess what the Chunin wanted. Choji couldn't help but look out of his bedroom window. Naruto's bed had been set up next to his already. He waited with bated breath as he watched the range of emotions run through Naruto's face. Back in school, Naruto was almost always the last to learn something and never the first. History repeated itself as the last of the Konoha 12 learned of the third Hokage's death. Once Iruka had finished talking, Naruto just turned away from him. Iruka looked like he said a few more words before he made his way back over to his dad. Naruto jumped over to the Akamichi training ground and onto a high rock, usually used for cover, before sitting down and looking up at the sky. 2 knocks on his door announced the arrival of Choza. Oi Choji, Iruka just told Naruto about the third. I think Naruto wants to think for a while, so I'll wait for him to come in. Yes Dad. Choji nodded to his father before he disappeared back around the door as it swung shut. Choji took one last glance out the window at the orange blob before settling down for the night. The last thought on his mind was supporting his friend and ally in the future. They could have gone better. Shikaku groaned as Choza stepped off the staircase and joined Inoichi and himself. From what I know, the kid looked forward to relieving the third from his hat and surpassing the fourth, Inoichi said as he swallowed another saucer of sake. Choza retook his seat at the small, 3-man table they'd all gathered round for years as he refilled his friend's saucers along with his own. So, Shikaku began, sitting up and staring directly at his host. Still feel like killing the very dangerous demon? Choza's grip on the bottle of sake tightened and shattered the red pottery as Inoichi choked on his latest saucer. Sake drops echoed throughout the room as they dripped onto the floor while none of the 3 old teammates moved. After a long silence, Choza decided to speak up. "I admit it, I may have been a bit too angry in the past," he said in a low tone. "What the hell are you two talking about?" Inoichi growled, his eyes narrowed in seriousness of the subject matter. Shikaku raised an eyebrow at his Akamichi friend who simply closed his eyes and nodded in response. "You weren't here," Shikaku began, but just after the Genin graduation test, Naruto was tricked into stealing the scroll of sealing from the Hokage's office by the traitorous Chunin Mizuki. Inoichi nodded along, knowing that Iruka had managed to track Naruto down before Mizuki and helped the boy learn that he was being manipulated before the pair took down the traitor. He'd been out on his own mission at the time with a reconnaissance team to the hidden waterfall to confirm the leader's recent demise. "What you may not know is that our gracious host here suffered a case of mob mentality," Shikaku continued, gesturing to the downcast Akamichi. Understanding that he was still missing some information, Inoichi looked at Choza for further details. The large ninja sighed, down what Sake had gathered in his saucer, much larger than his friends, before speaking. "I was part of the group that demanded the Hokage kill Naruto." Inoichi's eyebrows skyrocketed in surprise as Shikaku just stared pensively at the man. "It was just after the third told us about the theft. One of the other Jonin voiced his opinion to kill Naruto to prevent the..." Choza raised his eyebrows to the other two in suggestion rather than say the words out loud. Both appeared to understand what he wanted to say. From being released once again, Choza sat back in his chair and looked up at the ceiling. "It seems stupid now, but I didn't want to lose anyone else," Choza said softly. "I didn't want a repeat of that night." All 3 minds drifted back to the attack on Konoha by the 9-tailed fox. "We all lost people that day," Choza continued, "but all I could see for days after the battle was over was Chajin." Shikaku and Inoichi grimaced and gave their friend pitying looks. Nearly every person in Konoha lost someone precious to them that day, their own clan suffering many deaths too. Luckily, none of their immediate family were taken from them. Parents, siblings, and even kids were all okay by the time the dust settled. All except for Choza's own sister, Chajin Akamichi. She'd been one of the frontline fighters during the attack, using her abilities and subsequent size to destabilize the Kyubai's feet and keep it off balance. Eventually the fox had had enough of her and bitten her in 2. By the time they'd found Chajin, the fox had ripped off all but her left arm and head. Choza, as leader of the clan, was needed to confirm her demise at the morgue before the sun had even rose the morning after. Their comrade was subsequently on medical leave for months after the battle to deal with the depression he'd faced over losing his only sibling. When the Jonin started talking, all I could see was Chajin's face again. I was ready to do whatever it takes to prevent another night like that. So, I joined up with them. We stood outside the Hokage Tower and we let out voices be heard. "We should have killed him." We shouted, "He's very dangerous. If you find him, kill him." Seems utterly ridiculous looking back on it now. Choza finished. "Who was it?" Inoichi asked. "The Jonin that started the mob." Strangely, Choza slowly started laughing. "You know," he began after a few moments, "I have no idea." Inoichi looked at his partner in confusion. "You'd think I'd remember right. The one who caused me to see Chajin that way again. But I don't." He went silent. "After that day and all was settled, I made it a point never to interact with the boy or any conversation involving him. Just stirred up the memories again, you know. Whenever Choji'd come home telling me and his mom about their eating contests or their latest detention from skipping lectures with your boy, Shikaku, I'd just use a genjutsu to deceive my family into believing I was paying attention. He even named the bloody technique. I still demand you share that." Shikaku growled at his friend as Choza chuckled. "Why did you bring this up now, Shikaku?" Inoichi turned to the Nara of the team. "Too much sake already, Yamanaka," Shikaku teased in reply, shaking his head. While his deflection didn't satisfy the clan head, his Akamichi counterpart filled in for him. "Our Nara is just concerned for Naruto's well-being while living here," Choza answered. "He confronted me about my behavior before Iruka and Naruto had even returned the scroll. Threatened me even. You know he can see things we can't. He told me you better cut this shit out right now. You think Chajin would have accepted this crap from you?" Inoichi gasped and turned to the Nara clan head, who just shrugged in response. "He was right to say it," Choza admitted. "Sorta snapped me out of my bloodlust in a sense. Like I said, I've avoided Naruto ever since, ashamed you could say. But after this invasion, hearing what he did for ours and Shibai's kids, befriending that Zabuza and his apprentice who helped out your own daughter and get her to safety and protecting you from the one-tailed sand beast, I just can't believe how stupid and narrow-minded I've been." Inoichi nodded. It did seem that, despite all the negativity and prejudice against the young genin, he'd made some life-saving decisions for the village. His rejection of Inoichi's own gambling winnings on his match had even been for the direct benefit of the village, with nary a selfish thought in the matter despite his own situation. "You aren't gonna make him scam me, are you?" Choza asked Shikaku, jerking his head towards Inoichi as the subject of their new conversation topic. "Nah, I think I know you well enough to tell when you're insincere even without his help." Shikaku chuckled, standing from his seat and fetching a nearby bottle of sake. "So that's why you offered to let him stay here then?" Inoichi asked Choza as the tension had all but fled the room by now. "Pretty much. Shikaku was right from the start, as usual." Naruto is nothing to hate, it's the thing in his belly that killed Chajin. That kid's been nothing but a blessing since becoming a genin. I wouldn't say that to Lord Jiraiya. He had managed to tar and feather the old Sannin a while back. Shikaku chuckled as he refilled each of their saucers, spotted the rainbow feathers trailing behind him as he chased the boys' clones around the village for a while. The sound of a door opening caught all three's collective ears before they watched the topic of the recent discussion walk slowly into the room. "Hi, Mr. Akamichi. Could you, Naruto spoke, unusually quiet for the boy, but considering the recent news he'd received, none of the other present thought he'd react otherwise. Choji's room's upstairs on the right, the door at the end of the hallway. Choza explained to the boy. Can I get you anything? No thanks, Mr. Akamichi. I think I'm just gonna go to bed. Good night, Mr. Yamanaka, Mr. Nora. Night, kid, Shikaku called out. Good night, Naruto. Inoichi followed. The group watched as the boy synonymous with energy traipsed slowly up the stairs and down the hallway out of sight. Geez, poor kid, Inoichi said, breaking the silence after their conversation. I know, Choza said, looking back at myself in the past just makes me sick. No matter what you've done in the past, it's how you reflect and move forward that matters most, Choza. Shikaku comforted his friend. I think we should have our last toast before I go get frying pan by Yoshino. Inoichi and Choza both looked up at the clock on the wall and nodded in agreement. Tomorrow was going to be a long day for the whole village. To the fallen, Inoichi raised his saucer. To the fallen, Choza and Shikaku joined him before the three downed their sake. The sky was painted a dingy gray as Naruto slipped his arm through one of Choji's old plain black tops. The look on Naruto's face could break anyone's heart as he looked at himself in the mirror. Along with his plain black top, Naruto had also been given a pair of plain black slacks and sandals for the event, the memorial for those who died protecting Konoha. Naruto picked his dark blue headband up off the table, looking down onto the symbol of the leaf imprinted on it. As he looked at the mark he proudly wore only yesterday, painful memories of the old man had come flooding back to him, happy memories with him, and how he knew he would never be able to make any more with the old geezer. Deciding to wear his hair loose today, he tied the ends of his headband around his neck, his bangs hanging low, helping to hide the pained expression he wore. 2 knocks rang out through the room as Choji poked his head in through the door. Hey Naruto, you ready? Choji called out, poking his head around the door. Naruto nodded slowly before turning back to Choji, his eyes completely hidden under his bangs. Choji simply nodded back and led Naruto through the corridor and out where his folks were waiting for them, also dressed in simple, black outfits. With the small party complete, Naruto and the 3 Akamichi set off towards the Hokage building, where the service would be held. Naruto hung toward the back of the group, simply looking at his feet while he could hear others moving around him. Tenten walked out of her family's shop, her traditional buns undone, letting her own hair hang loose with her headband tied around her left arm as she adjusted her black blouse and skirt. She looked up as she finished a few brushes, watching as the Akamichi walked past with Naruto following, almost looking like he was under a Yamanaka-controlled jutsu. A brief jog and she caught up to the blonde boy, reaching up and placing a hand on his shoulder in support. His head tilted her way for a second as she caught his eye. Its normal blue sparkle had vanished, only a dull blue haze remained. Naruto's gaze returned to the floor almost immediately as his head followed slowly. Feeling a pang of extra pain in her heart, Tenten reached over to Naruto's other shoulder and pulled him into a one-armed hug as they walked. The blonde didn't react. As they walked further into the village, more ninja could be seen heading towards the bottom of the monument. Kakashi and Guy were just ahead of them while Ibiki and Anko could be seen whispering to each other as they popped out from a side alley. Several other members of the unofficial Konoha 13 could be seen dotted amongst the crowd. Lee now joined up with Guy. Both of their usual youthful energy moods had been put aside for the moment. The Yamanaka and Nara clan heads' kids were waiting for their last member up ahead, and Kiba was walking sullenly with his own clan, each with their Ninken partners with them. The sky was even darker now. A small cry of thunder let itself be heard among the ninja, warning them of the heavens' impending tears. Tenten felt another hand place itself alongside hers on Naruto's far shoulder. Looking back, she saw Haku nod silently to her while Zabuza brought up the rear. He'd even worn black mouth bandages. Haku moved her hand onto the largest section of Naruto's occupied shoulder that wasn't covered by Tenten and gave Naruto a small squeeze and dim smile. She received the same look Tenten got when she approached, cold, lifeless eyes. As the ninja made their way to the top of the Hokage building, each took their place in an organized fashion, standing a foot from every other person in front, behind, and either side. As Naruto and the 2 girls took their places, they both released his shoulder with a small pitying smile on their faces for the boy. If you strained your ears, trying to listen like a ninja, you would hear a small word of thanks from the blonde when the girls released him. Neither spoke, but both their thoughts replied, in a time. Tenten looked around the crowd as the last of the ninja had made it onto the roof. Up front stood several pictures, each on a little stand with a small candle and scroll next to each individual one. A Hokage's portrait, stand, candle, and scroll were the biggest and settled in the center of the other pictures. Most of the major clans had a spot up close to the front. Both Hinata and Neji stood next to each other next to the Aburame clan as the last few stragglers settled and the funeral could begin. A few drops of water landed on Kurenai as she stood next to Asuma Tobai. It's raining, she said as the clouds released their water. Yeah, Asuma replied, a strained look on his face. Even the heavens weep for our loss. At the front, right next to the portraits, Koharu and Amura stood with their heads low, acknowledging their lost teammate. We are gathered here to remember and honor not only the third Hokage, but all those who sacrificed themselves in this battle so that our village would survive. Koharu began. The procession carried on as each person in the crowd remembered their beloved and the memories they have with them. Naruto's mind shut out the noises from the outside world as his thoughts now ran through his memories with the first time he'd taken the old man to Ikaraku, when he managed to knock him out with his sexy jutsu, and the last time he spoke to the old man before the tournament. A dull coarse noise made its way past Naruto's defenses and brought him back to the real world. In front of him stood Konohamaru Sarutobi, holding his hands up to what Naruto could assume were his eyes as the kid cried for the loss of his grandfather. Naruto felt the need to reach out and comfort the boy he'd taken on as a mini-apprentice in trouble, like Tenten and Haku had done to him when a hand placed itself on Konohamaru's left shoulder. Naruto looked over and recognized the familiar ponytail his old sensei wore. Uruka just gave Konohamaru a reassuring squeeze before nodding back to the front. Naruto's eyes followed and watched as each member of the crowd placed a white rose on the small table before the pictures. He reached into his pocket, unclipping the clasp on his kunai pouch and pulled out a similar white rose from inside it. The people around him began to do the same, plucking their white roses from wherever they had them hidden as Naruto's line made its way to the front. Why did you do it, old man? Why did you have to die? Naruto thought as he placed his rose and returned to his position. The procession drew to a close when the last ninja placed their rose and returned to their spot. Amura and Koharu brought their arms to their sides, making sure the noise of it was heard by all as everyone stood to attention. As a way of flowing away, everyone bowed before the fallen as a last sign of respect. With the official funeral over, many ninja began to disperse while some remained at the site, wanting a few more minutes to think. Uruka led Konohamaru away with his friends, passing Naruto with a brief nod to his former student. As the crowd thinned, Naruto moved closer towards the front to look the Hokage's portrait head-on as he thought. Naruto, are you okay? Tenten and Haku inquired respectively. Naruto kept his gaze focused on the third as though he was trying to think him back to life. Zabuza looked on curiously as the boy he'd come to admire let out a long sigh before turning and walking away. Naruto, the girls called after him. Without the sound of a footstep being made, Zabuza was behind the pair, his hands now giving their shoulders a reassuring squeeze. Let him go, he needs to be by himself for now. But nothing. The boy needs some space to think about what he's going to do next. From what I hear, the Hokage was the closest the kids ever had to family, Zabuza said, firmly enough to stop Tenten's questioning, but not enough to scare her. The trio just watched as Naruto walked away from them and back out into the streets. Slowly, color began to return to the village as people exchanged their wet, black clothes for their regular outfits. Those that could reopen their stores, ninja got back to their missions and others just did what they could to cheer themselves or others up. Naruto had decided to remain in his mourner's clothes as he sat atop the Hokage monument on the head of the third. His arms clutched his knees into his chest as he looked down at the village with the dots of people moving about their lives. Naruto's thoughts turned back to the old man, wondering just how the all-powerful professor could have lost. While the rain had dampened his blonde locks, its spiky structure was still maintained. It was one of the things he was most recognized by, especially to one who watched him train till he was numb. A small girl was walking along the top of the monument, her eyes guiding her to her target as she deactivated her Kekkei Genkai. She hopped over the guardrail and walked slowly toward her target. She said quietly as she tried to think of how to begin the conversation. Hello, Hinata, Naruto called out without turning around. Hello, and Naruto, Hinata said back, nervously. Her mind raced with her crush being mere feet from her as well as the thought of possibly breaking the rules by being on the monument in the first place. You gonna stand there all day or what? Naruto called back, jerking his head to the side, indicating the free space next to him. Hinata blushed as she quickly made her way closer until she was standing next to Naruto's form. Holding her hand up to her face to cover her mouth and as much blush as she could, her mind resumed the task of trying to make her speak in Naruto's presence. You still thinking about the old man too? Naruto asked, his voice softer now. Yes, figures. I'm surprised you're the only other person up here, Hinata. Naruto's gaze was still trained on the village below as Hinata crouched down, gracefully lifting her black skirt slightly to prevent the cold, wet rock leaving marks. Hinata started before Naruto finally turned his head towards her. She looked into his eyes and saw the dull shade of depression she had often seen in her own mirror many times. I just wanted T to feel a bit closer to him. That's all. For a brief second, a small smile flicked at the corner of Naruto's mouth. I know what you mean, Naruto replied, letting out a sigh as he released his legs and stretched until he lay flat. Hinata blushed crimson at this and looked down towards the village. The two sat in relative silence for a few minutes, listening to the wind wash through the trees and the birds sing their daily song. He changed my life, you know. Naruto spoke up as Hinata turned to look at him. He gave me somewhere to live, something to look forward to and someone to care about. Hinata waited patiently for Naruto to speak again. Naruto just stared up at the sky, occasionally blinking as the raindrops hit his eyes. I couldn't wait for him to come by some days, when he'd bring me some ramen or something. I remember when he got me my first set of goggles, remember those? Naruto pointed to his forehead, Hinata just nodded, not wanting to disrupt his train of thought. Yeah, he used to come by every week and just spend time with me. Whether it was playing ninja or teaching me a new move or something. He would always make time for me. Hinata smiled as she saw Naruto's own smile begin to come back. Whenever I was alone or hurt, I always thought, what would the old man do? Whenever I got knocked down, I made myself train harder so I wouldn't get knocked down again, just like the Hokage trained, and didn't let anyone hurt him or people in the village. I always told him I was gonna beat him someday and take that hat from him. No, why? Naruto asked, his story drawing out some enthusiastic energy inside of him. Why Naruto? So I could do for him what he did for me all those years. If I was stronger than him, I would make him realize that, and the stronger one of us would be Hokage so they could protect the other. Naruto grinned, his right hand now clutched into a fist as he sat up, as though ready for a fight. But no, his hand fell back down by his side as he let out a sigh. Hinata suddenly felt a bit awkward sitting with Naruto. Why do you fight in Naruto? The blonde turned his head toward the petite girl. I'll tell you why I fight in Naruto. Hinata took in a deep breath. I fight because I want to become strong. I want to get strong so that I can protect the people I love the most. Hinata turned and smiled at Naruto as she fiddled with her sleeve and looked into Naruto's eyes. I want to get strong so that no one can hurt the people I hold closest to me no matter how hard they try. Kurenai-sensei, Iruka-sensei, Kakashi-sensei and the Hokage all protect us when we're out on missions. They risk their lives to keep us safe so that one day, we can protect our own students' lives when we're Jonin and live safely. In the village, together, Hinata's blush returned and her voice weakened as she squeaked out the last few words, worried about how Naruto might react to what she implied. Naruto sat quietly as he faced the village once more. The old man wanted to protect everyone in the village because we were all his precious people. Haku's words in Wave Country floated back to him. Naruto's hands both gripped tight as he pushed himself to his feet. You hear that, Leaf Village? Naruto shouted, I'm gonna get stronger and stronger. One day, I'll become Hokage and protect you all. Naruto's echo rippled around the Hokage heads and drifted into the village where a select few ears picked up his declaration. What about you, Hinata? Naruto turned back to the crouching girl and offered his hand. You gonna get strong enough to serve the all-powerful Hokage, Naruto? Hinata blushed deeper and turned her head but offered her hand, feeling a sharp yank as Naruto pulled her up to her feet mere inches away from him. She saw his smile and sparkle had returned as she gazed into the eyes she had fallen hard for. We'll make a promise right now, you and me. We'll train as hard as we can and achieve our dreams together, right? Almost hypnotized to the reawakened brightness in Naruto's eyes and grin, Hinata gripped Naruto's outstretched hand in both of hers. Right, I promise you and Naruto, I will try as hard as I can to fulfill my own dream. Hinata said, a certain firmness in her voice helped seal the deal. Naruto smiled and shot his trademark grin back at the petite Hyuga. Though what happened next he couldn't prepare for. Hinata's eyes closed as her hands gripped Naruto's tighter. Naruto's eyes widened as he was suddenly pulled forward. Hinata opened her eyes a crack and willed herself forward, bringing her own lips against Naruto's as he placed his hands against her shoulders to balance himself. The two stood motionless as a soft wind blew over the monument. The sounds of the village and birdsong slowly drifted back into their senses. Naruto pushed gently on Hinata's shoulders, separating the pair as he looked at Hinata's face for any explanation as to what just happened. Her eyes fluttered open and gazed back into Naruto's confused pair. They opened as wide as they could as the now beat red girl jumped back with her hands now covering her mouth, letting out a small squeak of surprise. Hi Hinata, I am sorry and Naruto. I didn't mean to. She squeaked again, looking away as though she was being scolded for doing something wrong. Hinata, no that's no. I mean it was Naruto blushed as he couldn't help but look away from the girl. The two stood in silence for a minute or so more before either could even glance at the other. Listen, I have to Gia, get back to training Naruto said, doing a fairly good impression of Hinata. Oh, okay, Hinata said back quietly, turning to leave with saddened shimmer in her eyes. I just need to Naruto started. He shook his head quickly as he finally got a sentence together. I just need to think for a while, okay. Hinata stood still with her back toward him. A small bob of her head meant she understood. Okay, so I'll talk to you later. A few seconds passed before Hinata's head bobbed again, accompanied with an affirmative Good, okay, right I'll see you around Hinata. Naruto finished. Without another word, he tore his eyes away from the girl and ran towards the edge of the third's head. Hinata turned and watched as Naruto hurled himself off the top of the monument, disappearing from her sight. Fear instantly set in as she hurried over to the edge and activated her Byakugan. Wind whipped through Naruto's hair as his body fell faster and faster, passing the third's massive hair, nose, and chin towards the harsh foliage below. His eyes began to water from the speed before he held out his arm as pushed a small burst's worth of chakra out of one, letting his other hand and feet grip the wall and slide down, slowing himself with regular chakra. It hurt his hands like hell, but it was the fastest way to get out of an awkward situation, he reasoned. The trees rose to meet him and he pushed himself off the cliff face before bouncing off of branches, back toward the village roads. Hinata let out a sigh of relief as she watched a small orange and yellow dot pop out of the trees and bound over buildings towards the Akamichi clan residence. She released her Byakugan and closed her eyes in her relief. A small thought made itself known in her mind as her hands shot back up to her mouth as fast as her body's blood could rush there. I kissed Naruto. Within the hour, Naruto could be found sitting atop the middle pole inside Squad 7's training ground, his head in his hands as he stared at a combination of knees, sandals, and ground. First Haku, then Hinata. But she knows about Haku, right? But then there's Tenten and what she does. I mean, she makes me feel. But they make me feel. Arg, I can't. But. The Kyuubi could feel a headache coming on as though he could hear Naruto's thoughts being shouted in his ears. GRRR, will you just shut up? The Kyuubi roared. Naruto clutched his own ears as his balance failed and he toppled to the ground between the posts. What the hell was that for? Naruto shouted out. For giving me a damn headache, you moron. Geez, it's like you're shouting every thought at once. I'm in here too, remember. Naruto shook his head as his outer hearing returned. What good are you? It's not like you can help with this sort of thing. I am a well of knowledge forged over a great many years. You think I can offer no advice to your current situation? You must think less of me than I realized. The fox snarled. Naruto took in several deep breaths as he pushed himself back into a sitting position, pushing one foot up against the far pole and leaning his back on the one he'd just fallen from. Okay, alright, I'm sorry. Naruto apologized. It's just this whole thigh. Zip it. Naruto, shut up. Good, you must forget I see everything you do now, else you wouldn't think to remember I have seen everything you have about these girls. I may have picked up on something you didn't, for instance. Naruto nodded slowly as he understood the situation a little better. Right, so let me start by spelling it out for you, then see where that takes us. You know 3 girls called Haku, Tenten, and Hinata, yes. You have managed to kiss all of these girls, yes. And you think you feel something for all 3 of these girls that you do not for other girls, say for instance, Sakura, yes. Naruto nodded at the end of each question. Then there is only one option. Naruto waited eagerly for the answer to his confusing thoughts. Mark, all 3 is yours. The fox roared with laughter as Naruto's anger rose. See, this is why I wouldn't go to you for advice in a million years. The fox's laugh slowed before it spoke again. We'll put that in the maybe pile, shall we? Now, you've known each of these girls for at least a few months now, yes. Naruto nodded again, though a frown graced his face by this point. Well, let's take it one at a time, shall we? You kissed that Haku girl first. What do you feel when you're with her? Naruto's eyebrows rose slightly as he cast his mind back to when he was just with Haku and how he felt at the time. Well, she makes me feel nice and happy. Anywhere in particular? Naruto rose one eyebrow with a questioning look. Never mind. Now, what do you want to do when you're around her? Just the 2 of you. I kinda just, wanna hold her hand and stuff. Be close to her. Right. Imagine you're back at the cliff where Haku and you walked to when you went to find her in Zabuza. How did you feel then? A bit nervous, like she would look at me like all the villagers would. And why were you nervous about that? Well, Naruto rubbed the back of his neck in embarrassment, because it hurts when people look at me like that. Would you say it would hurt worse than if all the villagers did it? Yeah. Why do you think that is? Because I care more about what she thinks than what some stupid villager thinks. The Kyuubi grinned. Why? She's just a stupid girl that considers herself Zabuza's tool to use and be thrown away whenever she loses her barely passable looks or is of no more use to him. Shut up. Naruto yelled. Haku is not a tool anymore. She's a beautiful, smart, funny ninja who's a million times better than you. Because you like her. The Kyuubi smirked, a small laugh escaping his lips. Yes, because Naruto's mind suddenly caught up with his mouth. Because I really like her. Good, now we're finally making progress. The fox chuckled, his mind putting aside Naruto's insult for later when he can pay him back on a day that he isn't adorned in black. That's one down. Now tell me, what about Tenten? Naruto's mind raced as it ran Tenten through his recent thought process, in place of Haku, and came back with the same answers. Wow, I see you do have some brains up here. Though how I haven't seen them yet still makes me wonder. Shut up, you stupid fox. Geez. Naruto sighed. Now for the last girl, this Hinata. Clearly you haven't been with her for the same time as you have the other 2. How do you feel about her? Well, she kissed me, didn't she? Looked that way to me. Then, does she like me? The fox rolled his eyes. Likely, but you're missing the point. She's been around you since your early academy days, but it's taken you this long to even notice her, and even then it's taken you this long to realize how she feels towards you. The Kyuubi felt even his massive paw could not make a face palm big enough to represent this moment. She's liked you since forever. Damn, Naruto, think about it. She's always around somewhere when you're training. She blushes whenever she's up close to you. And let's not forget the big one, she kissed you. Now, how do you feel about her? Naruto's mind wrestled with itself as he thought about his previous interactions with Hinata. He searched his feelings, looking for the same things he felt when he thought of Tenten and Haku. If one was to look at Naruto's feelings for the 3 girls as though they were flower beds, you would see a small bunch of clear roses, not red nor white or yellow, but clear roses growing from 2 pots labeled Haku and Tenten. The third pot, labeled Hinata, was little more than a small mound of dirt, but when you look closely, a small, clear shoot could be seen pushing its way through the recently watered plot and growing slowly. What it could grow into would be anyone's guess, but it was definitely something to be monitored. I don't know. The only real time we've spent together was today. I know I was still thinking about old man Hawkage, and she helped me see just how similar we really were. Right, well, we can just leave that for now. Maybe you'll be able to figure it out yourself if you talk to her again. Maybe, Naruto said quietly, his mind going through different scenarios of his and Hinata's next meeting. Well, since we've figured out they all obviously really like you back, we should work on which one you have to pick. Huh, well, they didn't object to kissing you, you at least like them, you have to pick one and give the others the heartbreak of their lives. What? Well, you can only have one, can't you? You can only pick one of the three, which will it be, Naruto? The fox asked, chuckling to himself. Whichever one you pick, the others will be terribly upset and heartbroken. Naruto managed to picture the worst-case scenario, telling each girl that he picked another. The sadness that he pictured on each of their faces was devastating. It physically felt like he was hurting just imagining the pain on their beautiful faces. It reminded him of his own pain when he caught sight of himself in a shop window back when he was young. All he wanted was to not be alone anymore, to be hugged and held like other people were by their parents, to have someone to care for him as he cared for them. His mind raced at these thoughts and come to the only honorable conclusion. I can't do it to any of them. The Kyuubi chuckled deeply as he curled back up into his cage, seeing Naruto acknowledge that he did want all three girls. He returned to his own thoughts and remembered his own promise he made to himself earlier, not to bother Naruto on his day of mourning. Well, seems he'd kinda broken that, but it was for the boy's own good. Maybe he'd find some happiness after this. God knows the boy deserves it. Maybe I should just leave it for now. I need to do something. Naruto shouted to himself, his pent-up energy finding a crack in his outer defenses and begging to be released. I need to train, or work out, or hit something. A soft rustling in the trees and a familiar Sannin jumped into the clearing. The fox cracked open its sleepy eye. One last time it told itself, and recounted Naruto's last thought about hitting something. I couldn't pick a better target. Yo, Naruto, what are you doing all the way out here? Naruto was half tempted to try and get one up on the Sannin and push him into a little spar, but he put this urge aside to question the truant perv. Where the hell were you? Jiraiya flinched at this accusation. Me, Ayu. When? He asked innocently, the heat from the hot springs still keeping his coat a little warm. During the old man's funeral. Where the hell were you? Well, easy, Naruto. Just because you don't see a ninja doesn't mean he isn't there. Just what are they teaching in the academy these days? You know damn well what I mean. I know you weren't there because I could sense you halfway across town. Sense? Just how much influence does the Kyuubi have over him? So you did know where I was. I think you just answered your own question there, Naruto. He replied, a grin plaguing his features. The anger Naruto felt over the Hokage's death rose up in his chest, begging to be released in some form. Before Jiraiya could close his toothy grin, Naruto's fist struck towards the smug Sannin, hoping to at least take one of his choppers out. Jiraiya watched as Naruto's slow-moving hand passed over his head as he ducked, grabbing Naruto's arm and chest and flipping him over onto his back. They both landed on the floor with a thud that could be considered painful to anyone who hadn't trained their body harder than a wrestler. Geez, what the hell was that for Naruto? Jiraiya asked as he sat up, pulling the blonde up by his shirt and plopping him next to him though facing the other way. So I wasn't at the old guy's funeral. Big deal. It's not like I can't visit him later. Well, what were you doing that was so important that you had to miss paying your respects with the rest of the village? Naruto shot back angrily at the toad sage. Jiraiya leant back on both his hands, now looking up into the sky. Not to change the subject or nothing, Naruto, but did you see Sasuke there either? A pregnant silence hung between the two as Naruto recalled the funeral, not once seeing the black-haired Uchiha that he called his rival. Oh, he is so gonna pay for this. He's as bad as you are, you a dirty old perv. A swift downward bop on the head had Naruto clutching his skull lightly. Normally, I would agree with you, had that been the case, but you don't know everything that happened during the battle. Jiraiya sighed. His eyebrows furrowed as he saw the last snake looking into the sky at something. Turning his own gaze that way, he saw something small moving through the air fast. His eagle eyes zoomed in on said object. A red and white fan. His mind raced, remembering what Orochimaru was after all those years ago, watching as the snake's mouth opened slowly. Oh no you don't. Gamahiro, Jiraiya shouted to the toad, his partner knowing immediately what to do. Putting all its strength into its back legs, the toad launched itself across the battlefield, raising one of its blades in both hands for a stronger, double-handed strike. Jiraiya braced himself against the wind, ready to launch himself at the right time to snatch the Uchiha out of the air before the last of the snake heads devoured him. The snake had felt the loss of its other heads and the incoming force that was the toad sage. If he was going to die now, he would complete his final mission or have man to scold him in the afterlife. It extended its neck, stretching ever closer to the Uchiha as he passed under the front teeth. Jiraiya couldn't move fast enough. He kicked himself off Gamahiro so hard that he apologized for it later. Soaring through the air, he could only watch as the snake's fangs clamped down around the Uchiha who had been settled in the center of the snake's mouth. Gamahiro's sword came down, the silver steel sinking into the scales of the snake. Before the blade could make a majority of a cut, the snake burst into smoke, disappearing from the battle. Jiraiya's body emerged on the other side of the smoke, landing on a small building before turning to gaze at the lost enemy. In the lost Uchiha. Why? What? Naruto almost yelled, his voice definitely rising again. Either Sasuke Uchiha is dead or, more likely, Orochimaru has gotten his fangs on him and on the Sharingan. Jiraiya said as though the words hurt to say. Sasuke's been captured, I'm afraid so. Jiraiya answered, the village is still recovering from the attack and, of the few captured ninja, none have given us any sources on the snake's latest hideout. Naruto jumped to his feet. Well, what are we doing waiting around here? We have to do something. Geez kid, you got sand in your ears. I told you, with no leads, we don't know where to even begin looking. Unlike that Miss Nin and his apprentice, they could be all the way in Snow Country by now. Naruto's eyes widened and he dropped to his knees, his fists hanging uselessly at his side. Jiraiya let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. Look, kid, I shouldn't be telling you this, but the village has got a new mission for me. Naruto looked up into the Sanin's eyes. The cold, defeated look Jiraiya had spied from the rooftops earlier had returned. It sent his mind reeling back at the memories from the Third Ninja War, when Tsunade lost her little brother. It sent her into a downward spiral into what she had become today. He would not let Naruto join her down that path. The village is in need of a leader now and I have to leave and go look for them. First thing we have to do is rebuild the village. Second, while we rebuild the village, I can go look for our new leader. Third or second and a half, you could come with me and I'll teach you some of my all-powerful techniques. Naruto looked straight into the Sanin's eyes. A brief spark of excitement had returned but faded quickly. Jiraiya let out one long, last sigh, looking back up at the sky as he did. And, if we happen to come across any clues about Orochimaru's whereabouts, I guess we could check them out. The spark was back. So you're saying it might not be too late. I am saying there may be a slight possibility that we may still recover the location of the Uchiha. If there is a chance we can save him, we will bring back the information and I'm sure the village will send out many squads to bring back the Sharingan. Naruto gripped his fists together once again. I refuse to lose another friend to that bastard. Naruto raged. Teach me everything you can, pervy sage. Then I'll rescue Sasuke myself. After that I'll make sure Orochimaru never harms anyone again. The fire had been relit in the boy's belly. Jiraiya smiled lightly, then raised his arm and delivered another blow to Naruto's head. What did I tell you about calling me that? Naruto strode out into the Akamichi training grounds after denying himself a majority of the meal Choji's mother had cooked. He removed his jacket and set it on the rock he had sat on after Iruka showed up yesterday. Now back in the only jumpsuit and t-shirt he could call his own, Naruto stepped into the middle of the training field to try and organize his thoughts with a hard workout. Jiraiya-sensei said we'll set out tomorrow at dawn. I need to get rid of this energy so I can sleep tonight, he thought, running through a few basic taijutsu drills to warm up. I wonder how long we'll be gone. Jiraiya said we may be gone a while depending on how easily and quickly we can find this old teammate of his. I wonder if I should tell Haku and the others how long I might be gone. Then again, I should probably tell everyone that I'm actually leaving first of all. Man, that's gonna be awkward. Naruto's thoughts wandered to the three girls that had his mind so befuddled earlier that same day as he ran into more advanced drills. These thoughts filled his mind so much, he didn't notice one of these girls walking down the path towards him. Working hard, Naruto. A sweet voice called out to the blonde. Naruto's concentration broke as he turned quickly to the invader and raised his defensive stance. A cute giggle found its way to his ears as Tenten's form made itself recognized in his brain. Man, when you focus on something, you focus, eh? Tenten called out, walking towards the slightly stunned boy with a smile on her face. Naruto rubbed the back of his head nervously as the thoughts and feelings about her were pressing hard towards the front of his mind. Well, since I interrupted you, how about I help you train for a bit? She offered kindly, a hidden smile lurking dangerously behind her eyes, waiting for the right moment. Okay, sure. Naruto smiled, relaxing back into his taijutsu pose. Tenten looked at him curiously. Are you still warming up? I thought we could let our blades do the talking, you know, since I never got to face you in the Chunin exams. The smile looked more like a smirk now. Oh okay, sure. Naruto's hand reached over his shoulder, gripping for a blade that wasn't there. I wonder where I put that. Maybe I left it in Choji's room. No, I don't think I've had it in his house. In fact, I don't think I've had it since. Naruto looked at the dark smirk now residing on Tenten's face. What's the matter, Naruto? You did remember to take care of your sword like I told you to, didn't you? Naruto remembered now. He last had it in the fight against Gaara back in the cave, which had collapsed. Maybe he could buy some time from Tenten's wrath by saying it was inside while he dug for it. Oh darn, I think I left it up in Choji's room. I'll just go get it, you wait here, Naruto said, the last part hastily as he began heading toward the compound. In a matter of seconds, Tenten was jogging alongside him. That's okay, I'll wait outside the window for you. Naruto wasn't too deep now. He knew that if he went to get it and it wasn't there, Tenten would be pissed. On the other hand, if he suddenly took off for the rubble district, Tenten would suspect something was up. Only one choice was left for him. Tenten, wait. The pair stopped. It isn't in my room. Naruto rubbed the back of his hair again. I think I might have, kinda, sorta, lost it when I fought with Gaara of the desert. I'm sorry. I should have looked for it as soon as I left the hospital. Please forgive me, sensei. He bowed his head unto the weapons mistress's mercy. Tenten looked down at the blonde knucklehead, not letting him know that the sensei comment let her feel warm and giddy. So you're saying that you lost our finely crafted masterpiece in a hole somewhere in the village that may or may not be recovered in the future, and all you can say is sorry, sensei. Naruto braced himself for whatever punishment he felt he deserved after losing what he and Tenten put so much effort into making just for him. He heard a soft sigh and the poof of a weapon being summoned. This was it. He felt a pair of pokes against his shoulder. Naruto looked up at the thing that poked him. It was the end on a sheath, particularly one that he knew housed his blade. Looking further up the sheath, he found the handle he'd come to know so well settled at the end, meaning his blade was contained within. Lastly, he looked up at Tenten as she held the sheath out to him, a stern look on her face, but not one of anger nor disappointment. Don't go forgetting this blade, Naruto. We both put our hearts into making this blade for you. Don't go losing it like some generic shuriken. She scolded. Carefully, Naruto reached up and took the blade from her, quickly holding it out to himself and checking the blade was indeed concealed within. Satisfied, he pulled the sheath over his head and back into its original, comfy spot before looking back at Tenten. I'm sorry, Tenten-sensei. I will take better care of it in the future. See that you do, knucklehead, she said, a slight smile returning to her face. Now, Naruto had a question of his own for her. How did you? When I saw you at the hospital, all your gear was on the side minus your sword. I knew no one else would have taken it, so you must have used it when you fought Gaara. I know you didn't do it on purpose. A true ninja knows that sometimes tools must be sacrificed in order to protect oneself and others. I don't know how you did it, but I know you wouldn't leave it there without good reason, so first thing I did after my first visit was get it back. That was thankfully before the cave collapsed. Oh, okay, thanks, Tenten. Naruto smiled genuinely. With his previous thought patterns and unusual feelings around the girl, Naruto's body decided to act on the whims of his subconscious. He raised his arms and wrapped them around Tenten in a comfortable hug. Tenten's eyes widened at first, caught off guard at the suddenness of the gesture, but quickly realized what he was doing and put her arms around Naruto's toned figure, pulling him just that little bit closer. No problem, Naruto. The hug came to an end as the two teens parted, smiling awkwardly at each other. Naruto was the first to speak. Well, I should be getting to bed. I've got a big mission with Pervy Sage in the morning. Tenten put her hands on her hips. Naruto, she said with a hint of annoyance in her voice. How many times have I told you to pay proper respect to Lord Jiraiya? He's nothing but a pervy old man. Besides, he's probably gonna try and ditch me in all the towns we pass through to get some research while we look for the new Hokage. New Hokage? You mean you and Lord Jiraiya are going to find a ninja outside the village to become our new leader? Tenten asked. Well, kinda. She was a leaf ninja in the past. We need to find this T-snood chick and bring her back here. Naruto's interpretation managed to ring a bell in Tenten's mind. You wouldn't mean Tsunade, would you? Tenten's voice pitch rose as her excitement grew. That's it, I think. Me and Jiraiya gotta go find her and convince her to come back here. Naruto reiterated. Tenten's eyes were now brighter than diamonds. Wow, really? Oh, you gotta let me come, Naruto. She's my idol, the ninja I've modeled myself after. I just have to meet her. Naruto backed up slightly as the girl he was frightened of only moments ago was now begging him to take her on his mission with Jiraiya. I dunno, Tenten. It's not me who decides. I guess if you really want to come, you can meet me and Jiraiya at the front gate tomorrow at daybreak and ask him then. Naruto reasoned. Right, then that's what I'll do, Tenten said with a determination often seen on Naruto himself. Before anything else could be said between the two, Tenten had dashed off home with a wave back to Naruto, ready to pack for the trip. Naruto shook his head in disbelief as he wandered back inside with a smile back on his face. The sun just began to peek over the tops of the trees into the leaf village as Naruto and Tenten approached the main gate together where the white-haired traveler was waiting for them. Mornin', Naruto, what's with the girl? Tenten looked visibly irked by his question. Jiraiya-sensei, you remember Tenten, my friend with the weapons. Alright, yay, the one who loves my old hag of a teammate. Tenten had had enough of this. Lord Jiraiya, I wish to accompany you and Naruto to reason with and recover the next Hokage. Please take me along with you. She bowed her head with her hands together in plea. Jiraiya merely chuckled. Geez, kid, do you know how to pick company or what? Alright, girlie, if you've made sure everyone knows where you are, you can come with us. Tenten literally jumped for joy before calming down almost as fast. She walked over to the Toad Sage and promptly punched him in the ear. Naruto only looked stunned at his weapon-wielding friend, as did Jiraiya. Tenten spoke before either of them could get a word in. That was for insulting Lady Tsunade. Jiraiya just glared at the girl before looking over at Naruto, then back to the girl. This is gonna be a long trip, isn't it? Only if you make it so, Lord Jiraiya, Tenten said, her demeanor now back to excitable and cheery. And the name's not girly, it's Tenten, remember it this time. The trio left the village in high spirits aside from the minor beatdown as they began the trek for the third san unhappily. Meanwhile, in a remote part of Lightning Country, Kabuto, is he ready? A raspy voice called out. The door to the room opened with the sound ninja known as Kabuto standing there with a few minor scrapes on his body and clothes. He is awake and restrained like you ordered, master. Kabuto bowed to the figure in the bed. Good. The figure rose and brushed past Kabuto, moving out into the dark hallway. Dim torches lit the yellowed hallways as master and right-hand man walked towards a certain chamber where the main prize of the attack on the hidden leaf lay. Just a few more minutes, and I'll finally possess the Sharingan. Kabuto ran ahead and opened the door to the main hall of the hideout. It was here that a steel medical bed lay in the center of the room, currently containing the struggling body of the last loyal Uchiha of Konoha. My Kabuto, isn't it magnificent? Yes, Lord Orochimaru, Kabuto replied, hurrying over to the medical table. He looked down into the struggling boy's red eyes as they glared back into his, a gag holding back all the mean words likely to spew forth. Orochimaru coughed harshly and clutched his chest halfway between the door and his prize. Lord Orochimaru, Kabuto called out wordly. Stay back, just hurry and remove his gag. I want to see the fear in his eyes first. Hesitantly, Kabuto worked to turn the medical bed around, then kick a lever attached to the bottom of the bed. Sasuke felt his body lurch as it was brought upright. Still restrained, he looked across at this newcomer until his memory kicked in. That's right, remember me, little Sasuke. Orochimaru chuckled deeply. It seems everything has worked out in my favor. The third Hokage is dead, and I have the Sharingan sitting right in front of me, mine for the taking. Kabuto took this opportunity to reach up and pull off Sasuke's cloth gag. Instead of curses and insults, a rather unexpected string of words came from the Uchiha. So, that's why you marked me, so I'll give you my eyes. Orochimaru chuckled again. Oh my no, little Sasuke. You misunderstand. That mark was merely a backup. A little insurance, if you will. I knew that had I not acquired you during the battle like I have, you would grow to enjoy the power my little gift gives you and would soon come willingly to me, looking for more. Sasuke's eyes widened. He had indeed liked the power that the curse mark gave him and felt like he needed more. Much more. But it seems fate has worked in my favor. My snake managed to capture you just before it died. Now my years of planning can come to fruition as I take your eyes to master all the jutsu of the world. Orochimaru yelled triumphantly. TSH, so what? You're just going to take my eyes then kill me? I won't let you. Let me free from this thing and I'll take your head clean off your shoulders. Sasuke yelled. Kuku, my Sasuke, you seem to think you will be getting some sort of chance here. It is my sad duty to inform you that you won't be. I won't just be taking your eyes. I'll be taking your hands, your legs, and even your brain too as I claim your body for my own. Sasuke's eyes widened in shock as his head hit the back of the medical bed. It couldn't end like this. He was an Uchiha, an avenger. He still hadn't fulfilled his dream, his destiny of avenging his clan from his traitorous brother. Kabuto and Orochimaru chuckled lightly as the final moment approached. Prepare yourself while you can, little Sass. Orochimaru began his final gloating before the last technique ended his suffering in this body. What stopped him mid-gloat, however, brought a chill to everyone's bones. Two sets of footsteps could be heard moving down the opposite hall and, from the group's collective training, they could tell they were getting closer. Kabuto and Orochimaru were now both facing whatever it was that was walking towards them, and, at least for Orochimaru, Sasuke saw he had fear, anger, and absolute rage on his face all at once. As the two pairs of footsteps made it into the hall, one could now see they belonged to two men dressed in black cloaks with red clouds on them, complete with bamboo hats. Phew, Orochimaru hissed at the two newcomers. Sasuke's mind reeled at all the possibilities of who these newcomers could be. These wonderings were settled when he heard the silky voice that haunted his dreams to this day. Hello Orochimaru, I see you've met my brother Sasuke. So, Naruto, I should probably show you a new jutsu now since you're out of the hospital now and all. Hell yay, come on Kyuubi, give me your best one. Hehe, I hardly think you are ready for that just yet, but tell me, you are aware that we demons can shape-shift, correct? You can. Isn't that like our transformation jutsu? Quite the opposite, my young fellow. Their transformation jutsu is based on our shape-shifting abilities. The fact that anything we are is real while yours is fake. We use chakra to change our form, you simply hide it. Whoa, nice. So what are you going to change into? On the contrary, my dear kid, this is my shape-shifted form. Really? What, are you smaller than this in real life or something? The Kyuubi chuckled at Naruto's failed guess. Not at all. In fact, why don't I show you? The fox's red fur and face receded from sight, back into the darkness of the cage. Naruto waited with bated breath, eager to see the true form of the kitsune. So, Naruto, how do you like my true form? A sweet yet vulnerable voice called out. First from the shadows emerged a bare leg, then a thigh, before a stomach, bosom and petite face with 9 dark red hair braids. The worst part for Naruto, she was as naked as the sun is bright. The boy shot back into the murky water from a nosebleed, his mind reeling at the dirty thoughts going through his head. Okay, sadly the chapter is over, and if you enjoyed, just leave a like, and subscribe with post notification, so when the next chapter is ready, you will be notified. Okay, see you in the next video. Bye.